Could American schools please stop teaching future generations that using atomic weapons against cities is sometimes necessary and justifiable? I just saw Oppenheimer, and while it did have some imagined depictions of nuclear war, none of those depictions involved actual images from Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the bombs were dropped. More concerning, though, is that the movie regurgitated the same talking points many of us Americans heard throughout high school, which I'd say boils down to the bomb was necessary to prevent a ground invasion and force Japan to surrender. Numerous heavy hitters in the World War II scene strongly disagreed with that assessment, and you can check out my full review of the movie to hear them, but one in particular comes from the personal pilot of General Douglas MacArthur, who recorded in his diary that MacArthur was, quote, appalled and depressed by the bomb, which he called a Frankenstein monster. MacArthur believed that Japan would have surrendered as early as May of 1945 had the US not insisted upon unconditional surrender. His biographer, William Manchester, wrote that, quote, the Japanese would never renounce their emperor, and that without him an orderly transition to peace would be impossible, because his people would never submit to Allied occupation unless he ordered it. Manchester goes on to point out that, ironically, when the surrender did come, quote, it was conditional, and the condition was a continuation of the imperial reign. Had the general's advice been followed, resorting to atomic weapons at Hiroshima and Nagasaki might have been unnecessary. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Allied commander in Europe during World War II, has also been quoted as pointing out that the Japanese were ready to surrender and, quote, it wasn't necessary to hit them with that awful thing, adding, quote, I hate to see our country be the first to use such a weapon. The 1946 U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey also concluded that, quote, based on a detailed investigation of all the facts and supported by the testimony of the surviving Japanese leaders involved, it is the survey's opinion that certainly prior to December 31st, 1945, and in all probability prior to November 1st, 1945, Japan would have surrendered even if the atomic bombs had not been dropped, even if Russia had not entered the war, and even if no invasion had been planned or contemplated. The biggest issue with justifying the use of atomic bombs is that if these justifications worked in the past, what's to say they won't work again in the future? And where are we drawing the line with what we as Americans are willing to support if that line isn't drawn at nuking whole cities? Even if we pretend that Japan was never going to surrender, is that still reason enough to nuke them? Even if we look at all of the war crimes committed by Japan, is that reason enough for us to also commit war crimes? In a country with a vast biochemical and nuclear arsenal, with military bases on every corner of the planet, and with a long record of brutal interventions around the world, drawing the line at not using atomic weapons on cities is truly asking for the bare minimum. Oppenheimer succeeds in starting a conversation around the topic, but it still ultimately falls victim to parroting narratives that risk leaving viewers not entirely convinced that these weapons should never have been used and should never be used again.